Welcome to CKLA Knowledge 5, Lesson 11, The Inca, Machu Picchu, a Lucky Discovery. Our purpose for listening today is we want to identify the circumstances by which Hiram Bingham discovered Machu Picchu. Let's listen so we can describe the journey and discovery that Hiram Bingham made. Listen carefully to understand the word trek. Can you say trek? First, let's remember we live on the continent of North America. The civilizations we've been learning about are on North America and South America. The Maya civilization on North America developed around the Yucatan Peninsula. The Aztec civilization a little bit north of the Maya civilization in central Mexico. The Inca civilization is developing along the continent of South America. This part of land stretches along the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. We've learned so much already about the Inca people. Llamas were used to carry things from place to place. The Inca emperor had thousands of miles of roads built. That way, the runners could run along the roads and carry messages back and forth. Much of what we know that comes from this story is because of the work of an archaeologist. Archaeologists are scientists who study the way people lived in the past by looking at what they left behind. Sometimes archaeologists discover small things, and sometimes they discover very large things. Listen carefully to find out what Hiram Bingham discovered and how. Now we come to the amazing tale of an archaeologist named Hiram Bingham, who stumbled upon an entire city while looking for something else. Hiram Bingham was interested in learning more about the Inca's struggle against the Spanish invaders. Unfortunately, the Spanish conquerors, the Spanish word for conquerors, was conquistadores. They destroyed a lot of the Incan possessions when they attacked the Incan Empire, so Bingham had to depend on legends and folk tales for some of his information. One of these legends told that the last Inca emperor, Manco II, had built a city named Vitcos, using it as a headquarters to fight the Spanish invaders. The old story hinted that Vitcos might be down the Urbamba River toward the jungle in that area now known as Peru, South America. Peru is high in the Andes Mountains, which include some of the world's tallest, most challenging peaks. Bingham decided he would begin his exploration for information in the ancient city of Cuzco. His only other clue about Vitcos was that the city was said to have been built where a huge white rock overlooked a pool in a river. Of course, Bingham didn't know if all these so-called clues and legends were true. There might never have been such a city. Bingham went looking for Vitcos anyway. In Cuzco, Bingham started out with a small group of companions, riding mules along roads that soon turned into trails. One night, the small travel party camped near a river. A bit later, a stranger appeared unexpectedly. He was a local police sergeant whose tiny house was nearby. "My name is Ortega," he said, holding out his hand, and Bingham shook it. When Ortega heard of Bingham's interest in old ruins, he said, "Senor, I have heard of some ruins. If you like, I will take you there. However, it will be quite a climb. Bingham answered, If you take me, I can get there. They set out the next morning, while the rest of Bingham's companions waited behind, not willing to climb dangerous slopes because they were worried that the rumor of ruins was not true. After walking for nearly an hour, Ortega led Bingham down a cliff's edge. Below lay a silver gray river raging into white water rapids. Bingham could hear it roar as it raced along below. Urubamba River, said Ortega casually. We're going there. He pointed to a shaky-looking rope suspension bridge with wooden slats that looked as if it would collapse under the weight of a bird. Bingham took a deep breath and started out onto the bridge. He picked his way across carefully, testing each board before he put his weight on it and praying the ropes would hold. The bridge swung and swayed wildly with every step he took. He told himself, Don't look down, it will only frighten you more. Finally, he was across, and then Ortega followed. For hours they walked on through dense forest. They came to an open spot where some Incas lived in huts and grew food on narrow level strips of land called terraces. These terraces, carved into the mountainside by their Inca ancestors, had been used this way for centuries. Ortega and Bingham shared lunch with these people in a hut. It was clearly an important occasion for their hosts, who seldom saw visitors. After lunch, Ortega and Bingham climbed an additional 1,000 feet and emerged from the trees onto a level place. Although vines and bushes covered much of it, he could see stone walls had been built to make more terraces. Looking beyond, he saw a remarkable sight. Look, Ortega, he shouted. Spread out across the mountaintop lay an enormous set of stone buildings, their wooden roofs long ago gone, but their carefully fitted stone walls still standing. This dramatic setting, 2,000 feet above the raging river and with another higher mountain peak thrusting up behind them, took Bingham's breath away. For a moment, Ortega said, Senor, is this your lost city of Vitcos? I do not know, Bingham replied, but whatever it is amazing. Indeed, it later became clear that this was not the city of Vitcos, but this discovery, a city that seemed to float among the clouds, was even more fantastic, with no record of its existence. Bingham named his discovery after the towering mountain, Machu Picchu, which means Old Mountain in the Incan language. The Inca living nearby in the mountains did not know who had built the deserted city, nor did they know what had happened to the people who had built it. Later, Bingham wrote that Machu Picchu might have been the last hiding place of Incan royalty, built so high that no Spaniard had even guessed it existed. Or perhaps the city had been some special religious center for the Inca. He never learned the answer. A few weeks after reaching Machu Picchu, Hiram Bingham stood above a watery pool next to a huge white rock that was carved with Inca designs. Hiram Bingham had found the ruins of Vitcos, the place he had been seeking. But it was the discovery of Machu Picchu and its dramatic setting that would bring Hiram Bingham worldwide fame. As for Machu Picchu, its beauty remains today. Photographs have made it so famous that thousands of visitors make the long trek or journey there from all over the world. Machu Picchu has been chosen as one of the most important historic places for people to preserve and care for in the whole world. Scientists found evidence that cleared up the mystery of Machu Picchu. We now know that Machu Picchu was used as a summer capital for earlier Inca emperors, where the royal court would go in the hottest months. Maybe someday you will be an archaeologist who finds answers to mysteries like the mystery of Machu Picchu. Think about Hiram Bingham's journey to Machu Picchu. Choose one word to describe his trek. Think of one word to describe his trek and share it with a friend.